Far too often, LGBTQ plus business owners believe they have to choose between authenticity and being successful. Through these real-life stories, LGBTQ plus listeners aspiring for success can gain valuable insights to navigate their path to being both queer and successful. Hello, everyone. It is me, Hunter J. McNair, your hostess with the mostest, back again for this week's episode of Queer and Successful. Now, this week I am joined by my good Judy, my good pal, Shonn McCloud out of Orlando, Florida. Shonn has been on the podcast before, and this week he talked to us about how to create a culture that no one wants to leave. So Shonn works for Keller Williams, and he is a market center team leader, and his role is to recruit talent and retain talent. You're going to hear so many amazing insights from Shonn, and I hope you'll have a great listen today. Oh, but wait, I have a little bit more to share with you all. Today is Wednesday, and it is also the day that I am announcing my signature course, The Success Prism. Now, I believe success is not a finite journey. It is something that we must continue to work on and grow with. Now, like a prism, success is invisible to the naked eye. Well, when you shine a light on what success really looks like, we've identified 4 key modules, which are around mindset, around wealth and financials, around social presence, as well as people and systems. And with the Success Prism course, there is continuation. And that continuation after that class actually looks like what is the Success Prism Network, which is a subscription service where you can pay a monthly fee to get a monthly challenge based on those Success Prism modules. So I am super excited about that. If you cannot tell, you can actually go to queerandsuccessful.com to learn about it now. I hope you enjoy today's show. Hi, Shonn. How are you?
Hello, Hunter. I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I am amazing as always. I'm so excited to have you back. And we've recorded before privately, right, on for the podcast. And now we're doing this kind of like live recording mixed in with like these amazing topics that we're coming up with. I'm excited to have you back because you're so brilliant. And today's topic being around how to create culture that sticks, right? How to create an environment where people want to not only join your team or join your business, but they also never want to leave is something that is quite, an expertise for you because you are what do we call? We call it like a black belt team leader with Keller Williams.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Tell me like real fast, what exactly qualifies that? Like, what do you have to achieve in order to get that title?
Yeah. So it's a minimum of a gross 120 agents in that 12-month period, in addition to at least 45 net for the end of the year. So you have to hit both of those metrics to then get a black belt TL award. Yeah, my first full year in the role, black belt team leader. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like people underestimate how difficult of a position that is. And you really have kind of like you came out rocking and rolling with it. And I know like the Orlando market is also going through a buyer's market right now too, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to shift.
Yeah, like it's like I know it's like full on shifting. And so you're
Yeah.
not only, balancing a shifting market for your industry there, but you're also taking it with stride and doing a great job with your people. I know they all love you. For anybody who doesn't know you, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So, hey, everyone, Sean, I've been in real estate since 2015, so 10 years now. Wow, that flew by. And yeah, so I've been team leader for the past 3 years now. So real estate 10 years, team leader for the past three. Come from a performing background. So I was a performer, both on stage and then also director. So that's been my background in creative leadership. And that spun into becoming a team leader. And here we are today.
Yeah, an awesome team leader who's had me over at your market center to train before.
That's
And yeah, and you have really, really great people. And I think I mean I really say that like genuinely. Like I think that attests for your ability to like think of your role as a team owner really, because like your market center is your team, right? And look at it like not just a, hey, my job is to recruit people, but my job is also to create a group of people who are excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, how have you, you've been doing this what now, 2.5, 3 years there? How do you really define like what your office's or your company's culture looks like to retain this type of talent?
I mean, a great question. I think retaining talent, you have to think about talent as talent wants to grow, right? Talent wants to, move forward. They don't want to stay in the same place. So if you're not looking at personal growth, professional growth, financial growth, and measuring against not, how far you have to go to hit your goal, but more so looking at whatever you have accomplished, right? So it's not just the big wins. It's also the little wins along the way and celebrating those for the agents and helping them see that, hey, you are making progress towards your goal, but you have to first help talent grow. So talent wants to grow. So if you're not helping your talent grow, then you're probably going to lose talent.
Yeah, I think that's something that's really difficult because talent usually also wants to like either like grow super duper fast or they've got like this like 5 year plan or they've got all these like things and then something happens and then maybe that path changes, right? Like I think one of the things that I would find hardest, and I think I do find hardest as a team owner myself, is checking in and making sure that the growth plan we set up is still the growth plan they want to be on,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
What
Yeah.
are you doing for that? Like how often are you checking in with like, all these people?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just I guess the how is the hard question, the who is the easy question, right? So it's not just me, it's a team. So, if it was just me, then there's no way that we could ever achieve that. So I look at how can we collaborate, even within the market center. So our ALC have 401 partners and they meet weekly. So I'll check in on the ALC with their 401 partner monthly, but I don't have to be there for the weekly check-in, but they know if they want to have me on their 401 call, that's totally easy to do. I also use the help of AI, which we all can use, to track our market center growth reports to see, okay, great, who's outpacing the market right now, right? And
Mhm.
send them a note about that. And if there's an agent who's 90 days without a transaction, well, that agent probably needs some love or an opportunity to come in for coaching. So, I send them a handwritten note, so I'm not going to, a phone call to that just feels not, hey, you haven't closed a deal in, 3 months, you need a paycheck. That doesn't feel so
Yeah.
good, right? But a handwritten note that, hey, I see, no transactions within the last 3 months, have you thought about coming to the James Shaw event on May 1st? Let me know here, call me soon, right? Let's chat. So sending notes and recognizing that I think people just want to be seen, right? So if you at least see them and you can use some tools, right, to help you see more people more, that's going to help you kind of stay ahead and do some more touches.
I love that like the first thing you said was like, well, it's not all me. I have like people who help me do it.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know, like it's because you could easily just be like, yeah, I'm, texting everyone and I'm doing all the work, but you didn't. You're just like, no, I have a team of people and I leverage out the same way that any other business owner would to ensure that I'm providing the quality to the people on my team so that they know that they're really being taken care of, not just by myself, but by the rest of the staff. That's really cool. And what I would say is that's something that I probably have the hardest time with is like letting go. Like I'm very type A, my team will tell you. And so did you roll out the gate like that, or was it like some kind of learning curve with that?
Absolutely a learning curve.
Yeah.
So one of the great books, Who Not How, Dan Sullivan, that was a huge, game changer for me. And I learned to ask the question of who every time I said how. And it still happens, right? It still happens. I create this long list of things that need to get done. And then, you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh my gosh, this is just so much to do. And then you're like, wait a minute. This person can do that. This person can do that. Like I have a team. I have a team. Use the team. Use the team. And you
Yeah.
start dividing the list down. You're like, wow, I really didn't have that big of a list. I just was going back into if it is to be, it has to be me mindset, and that is not how we grow, right? So talent does not grow alone either, right? So fostering that collaboration has to also come from the leader, or else you're not going to get that growth that's able to fuel that talent to go to that next level.
Yeah, I've read that book and I read it this past fall when I was looking to hire another person recently. And even today I was meeting with my ops manager and I was like, well, I could just do this because I'll just do it faster. And then I'm like, as I'm saying it, I'm like, but I shouldn't say that because I need to like teach you and then I don't have to do it because if I do this, I'll do it forever. And yeah, that's a never ending cycle. Y'all, if you didn't know, that's a never ending cycle of reminding yourself it's a who, not a how. Now, you come from that performing arts background, like we talked about briefly, right? How have you really used like your experience in the acting and singing and this kind of like theater trope realm to your approach to building your company's culture?
All the time. My team they've learned to just like go along with the musical theater references and the theatrical analogies because it's so true. Obviously, the thing that comes to mind the most is that every voice matters.
Mm.
Right? Every voice matters. And when you think about building a show, there's voices that are both visible, as in the actors that you see on stage, and there's also voices that happen before you even got to that point, the training that leads up to it, right? So it's the preparation, it's also the show, and it's also the reviews, and that's the results, right? So you have to measure all of that, because that's the that's how you measure the success of a show, right? Did you rehearse well? Did you perform well? And did the show sit well with the audience? And did you sell enough tickets? And you just go, what's the recipe for that? And there's a lot of ways to get there. But the show that we're creating here is for us to be number one. And the recipe to get there is a little different, right? But it does not mean that every voice doesn't have a seat at the table. So listening to everyone is all valid.
Right, like that tree in your corner is a paid actor.
Yeah, paid actor. Yep. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
actor too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, actually, I think I kind of like that kind of take on it because you do think about a stage crew, right? It's not just the actors, it's the lighting professionals, it's the music, the band, right? The people drawing the curtain, right? There's so many pieces that go along with that, and there are no small parts.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And when the directing world, you have to see it all, but you can't be it all, right? I can't go step on that stage. I can't tell the actor how to say the line. However, I can help them find how they should interpret it, right? To get to their best version of the performance for that particular character. So
Mm.
that's all you can do, right? You find the right talent, right? You go out and find talent to perform in those roles. And then you bring in the right team of designers and production crew to support the actors, that cast that you've designed on stage. So I very much so approach the Market Center in that same way of finding the right talent that is right fit for this particular show. And then we bring in the right team of support trainers and resources to support them to get to the best that they can be.
Well, that's what you're doing is you're identifying what their talent is and you're empowering them to flourish with it, right? You're creating that space for them to fit within it also. Now, I know you're also a board member for some nonprofits, so local nonprofits. How have you integrated this kind of like community work into the Market Center's culture?
Well, the Market Center is community, right? So us being a part of the community at a greater involvement, right? So whether that's, sharing community events that I'm a part of, that also then, of course, there's gonna say, well, I'm also doing this community event. And we'll go to things together, right? We'll go to the gala together, and we'll buy seats and we'll all go and support the arts organization and, enjoy an evening of, paddle races and, raising funds for the arts. So, you don't have to do it alone, but I think the more that you share about the things that you're a part of and that are important to you, people also feel more open to share what's important to them. American Heart Association is really, close to my heart. Lost my grandmother to heart disease, and I share that with the Marcus Center, right? And during Heart Month, I have like a heart, cut out in my hair, right? So and like they've catch on to that, and like, oh my gosh, I want to help support. Can I go to this event with you? So it's just sharing what you care about as well, and that creates connection, yeah, and community.
I love I love that because I teach I'm taught a lot about value and being able to communicate your value to a consumer. I also think that communicating your culture and your passions are really important to creating that culture for your team, right? And that's one thing that is sometimes like the biggest hurdle when you're looking for talent or you're looking to bring people on is you're looking for a cultural fit, right? You're not just looking for, talent. You got to find the talent and you got to find someone who like really wants to be a part of what you're passionate about and what you're creating. And that can be a hurdle, but also the most rewarding thing that you can do. So I think it's really cool that you've expressed that to the market center and they all get on board with that.
Absolutely, absolutely, very important.
Yeah. So now, obviously, leading with purpose has been a reoccurring theme in your life because I know you and you've been doing this for a long time and you've been a leader in so many spaces. Can you share an example of a time when you had purposeful leadership impact your employee satisfaction and retention? Like, well, give me the tea. Don't say names, but where have you used that kind of leadership to make sure that your people are satisfied and retained?
Yeah, so I would say purposeful leadership. In my brain that's broad-ish, right? But it is directed, and then I also go to my brain just kind of points to big why, right? Like what's important to them, right? Because that's their purpose, right? So, if that's building generational wealth for their family, well, then let's create the path to building that together, right? So figuring out their big why, if that's taking, their wife on a, trip to wherever, at the end of their first year, because that's going to mean so much, to them because they're retired, they've never been able to go out of the country, whatever that purpose is for that agent, that's what's important to them. So whenever we can help them achieve that thing, that's when it's like, yes, we did that, right? And that's when you have people that stay committed, right? So that they're not just bought in, but they're committed, right? Because people are gonna commit to their own values and their own goals before they commit to you. And that's just reality, right? So if you can define what they value and what their goals are, they will also then commit to you because now you're in alignment, right? So it's asking enough questions to understand where do they want to go as a purpose-driven life and help them uncover that. Because sometimes people just don't slow down to even ask themselves, what do I want?
Mhm.
What does my family get in return for this? So knowing that, having that written down somewhere, we track it in a database, right? Because we're not gonna remember all of it. Some of it we will, but that helps us stay purposeful leadership in that purposeful leadership, track or zone, to help them get there.
Well, I think we're kind of like going back. I can kind of go back a little bit because I think about how, you said, well, I share what my why is and I share what my purpose is. And I think by you doing that first, you also give them permission to do that,
Yeah.
right? Like you're saying, hey, like I have these things I'm passionate about. What are you passionate about? Like I want this to be a reciprocal relationship, not just a one-sided relationship. I think that, I would say that a lot of team owners or a lot of business owners probably lose sight of that fairly quickly, right? It becomes the me, 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 me. And this is off script, but I want to know, when you've dealt with some of your team owners or just leaders within your office, have you ran into those types of hurdles?
Of course. I mean, you're not going to not run into it. I always bring it back down to, did you go through the KPA process, the entire thing, right?
Yeah.
Go down during motivational interview and life story and ask, well, what's the next event on, in this chapter for you, and what's happened after that, right? So you have to build that there together with your team, to then know what is that, right? And then you can always draw back to it. So, I can only say for the team that we have here, the leadership team in the market center, I can point to that. And there's times when things come up and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not in alignment with that, which is why this doesn't make sense. Shonn, you're not leading them, you're leading what you want for yourself. That's not their goal, right? So then you have to pull it back. So you'll put yourself in check as the leader, the more you know about your people that you're leading.
I love that you brought up that motivational interview. So for those who don't know, the Keller Williams personality assessment is the thing with Keller Williams that allows us to interview people through a full process. And part of that process is a motivational interview. And what Shonn's saying is like a lot of people skip that. And that really, what that is you're essentially creating four quadrants on a board, and two of them are money and work, and the other two they get to fill in. But it's like, what are the four things that, and that matter to you the most in life? And in 5 years, let's talk about what that looks like. What happens is one, you either skip it, right? You don't do that motivational interview in the beginning, so you don't know what motivates your people. And you do want to know what's motivating someone when you're hiring them, right? But also, even when you get through the hiring process and you have brought someone on, and they are working for you, they also don't redo it. I had a conversation with an agent that I respect highly who runs a mega team in Georgia recently, actually in South Carolina recently. And they were saying that they have this person and like their motivations, they can't get them to do anything. And they're just like, they're dragging the team down. And I'm like, okay, when's the last time you did a motivational interview, right? And she's like, well, I just did one. And I said, okay, but when was that? And she said, like 2.5 years ago. Like, that's not recent, like, you know, you know, someone had like this major life change, 6 months ago. We have to redo and check in with our people constantly, and the motivational interview takes like an hour. So, you want to not do that probably every week. But especially if someone's gone through a major life event, that's something that you need to be doing, and you have someone who's floundering. Now, balancing roles in real estate leadership and the arts requires you to be adaptable. And I know you're very adaptable because I text you in the morning and you're like, I'm at CrossFit. I'm like, okay, how do you provide and cultivate a culture that encourages that type of flexibility where people kind of get to live their lives to the fullest while balancing work and life? And how have you been using that among your team members?
Yeah, so I think of adaptability not as like a soft skill, but like a leadership skill, right? It's something that you have to continue to foster and nurture, and we're all wearing different hats. And I think about the leader that I would be inspired by, and it wouldn't be the person who is, not able to go to CrossFit in the morning, do the, gala planning for Orlando Shakespeare Theater, host a community event for kids that are in underserved communities to do a theatrical production, and then come back and run the market center. Like, oh, I probably be like, all right, cool, they're doing some stuff, right? But if the person was just like work, 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 close the door, I'm so stressed, oh my gosh, pull my hair out, I can't do all, like, oh my gosh, like, I don't want your job, and I really don't want to be like you at all, right? So you also kind of think about yourself in that sense of, if you have a parent who's coming home that's, exhausted, you probably are trying to do something differently from your parent, right? So it's like you're kind of need to be the leader you want to see, is what I'm trying to say, right? So like, be the person you want to see, and be that inspiration to someone else. So it's not about you. So if anything, live your life to the fullest, because that is for others as well, to say you can do it too.
Yeah. Who do you think's the hardest to pick that up? Do you think it's the newer people or the more experienced people?
I would say, probably the more experienced people, honestly, right? Because you kind of getting your, I won't say rut. You're like, I do this, I do this, I do this, and it's easier to kind of put the blinders on and just say, I just need to close my deals, right? I just need to just do this one thing, and nothing else really needs to happen, right? And you just kind of stay in that zone. And you forget that there's life outside of everything else, right? There's just so much beautiful life to be lived and to have, and to the skill sets that you're building and developing in this, world of real estate are applicable outside of that too, right? So it's okay to have another, hobby or another organization that you contribute to. You should, like you're talented, so contribute those talents wherever they can be used.
It's funny you say that because I tell a lot of new entrepreneurs, a lot of new business owners that, when you're in the very beginning of creating your business, this is the most time you're ever going to have to create your perfect world and to really do that for yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's a reminder to add on to that and to just say more to that, to say, that, hey, like, while this is the most time you'll ever have to do it, at any time you can reevaluate everything you're doing in life and say, you know what, this isn't serving me, and I need to put my priorities here, and I want to recreate my business and my world the way I want it now. You don't have to wait. It's fascinating that people who've been in more experience get more stuck in their ways, but I guess that should be understood as a common thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, professional development within your office, how are you keeping your people professionally developing constantly? Like, I know that on Wednesday we're announcing a big thing, and everyone here is getting an exclusive, and that I'm going to be visiting you in June. But how are you promoting professional development and lifelong learning as a core component for your company's culture?
Well, I think it's also it goes back to knowing their goals and knowing if they're actually hitting their goals. So asking for my top 20%. I'm like, hey, I need your updated GPS. We just got through Q1, and I just pulled all of your multi-year trends reports, and I know who's up and who's down. So basically saying you can't hide, right? So go ahead and share that, and then going through their business and saying, hey, based on what you're struggling with right now, with training your buyer's agent to get to 24 units, here Teams One is offered on, this coming Friday. Are you already registered to be in the room? So going back to say, here's a training that's going to not making your person figure out where do I need to go, right? So you're bringing them the training that's specifically for them. You're not, giving just a training calendar and saying, hey, good luck, right? So you can't expect your talent, right, your producers to go in and go through 50 events in that month and say, oh, let me find where I'm supposed to go, right? So I think it's our job, so it's the team's job to say, hey, here's this list of new agents, here's who's got some traction going. They haven't got enough listings yet. We need to tell them to go to this Jeff Glover event that's happening next month. So we create our list for who should go to what trainings, and we just maybe have that focus list for at least them. So it's not that we're not going to market the event to the entire market center. However, we're going to be very focused on this is where you need to be, this is happening in Austin, this is happening here. So we're having one-off communication with them. So
Mhm.
also we use a tool called Reach to
Yeah.
do that, right? So if anyone's not using Reach and you want to do those one-to-one communications, it helps a lot with sending out a direct message. It feels personal because it's going to one person at a time versus a big group text or like a WhatsApp group kind of a vibe. But you can send the same message and just make quick modifications and send it to 50 people within like less than 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, we've utilized that because of you. Thank you for that tidbit. Got that tidbit from you last year. I think I think you said something that I think everyone who's listening should really, I never say you should write this down, but I think you should start writing this down, or you should write this down. One of your job descriptions as the CEO of your business is to find opportunities specific for your people, right? So you are the CEO of that office, right? You are the owner essentially of that office, just like we all own teams, we all run teams. It's your responsibility to find the opportunity for your people, to grow your people, right? That should be an active, time blocked thing that you do. It should be something that you are being intentional about, and you are making sure that your people are staying in growth. And I know even for my team, like we do this weekly call for everyone, right? I do my own weekly call with my team, of course, and people may not realize this, but I bring in people to train and teach my team. Like I leverage that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it's identifying what that needs to look like.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, you can't expect your people to pull their head out the sand, right? They're doing the work, right? They're in, and you're there as their leader to assist them to lead, right? So to say, hey, here's what you should be paying attention to right now. Even just within, I'm also, I'm a church guy, right? So I go to church as well. So I think about like when went to church this past Sunday, I'm like, oh my gosh, I really needed that message for this week. Pastor Jen didn't know that's what Shonn needed. However, creating a message for your weekly call or your team meeting or whatever that is, that's going to give your people some nourishment, some food, some sustenance to take them through, whatever they need to go through next. At times that is, bringing in a therapist to say, hey, how do we, work through burnout, right? What are some strategies to work through burnout? Because I feel like a lot of our agents are tired and everyone seems very stressed right now, right? So then we're going to have that as one of our team meetings, right? And then some team meetings might be, what's happening in the world right now. We're going to talk about, because I've had these come to my table. I am in Florida. Agent had their customer was deported, right? And they had to figure out how to sell the house because the spouse, still wanted to sell the house. We've had, people lose their financing because they lost their job. And we have people who can no longer qualify for FHA because 1 in 5 of people living in Orlando are foreign born, right? So we have a lot of these things that are happening, on a global scale on CNN that are actually happening in Orlando. So, bringing stuff, to your team that's going to also continue to propel them through their business to help them get through those gaps.
Yeah, it's wild because you can't look at business as ever just business. You have to bring in the reality of what's happening. And like you said, like most people are going to be their heads in the sand, right? Because they're doing the work. Your job as the CEO is your top 20% is to make sure that you're keeping their head out of that sand.
Yeah.
Now, we talk a lot about work. We haven't talked a lot about play yet, right? Now, I know because I just called you when you were leaving your awards ceremony. How are you recognizing and celebrating, achievements and boosting morale that way?
Yeah, so it's handwritten notes, right? I'll start there. So whether it's from me or from the ALC, so we have an AM cards account. And the ALC, they're on social with all the other agents, as am I, but I might miss something, right? So if I miss something, I want someone else to catch it. And they can just log into that AM cards account and create like a, congratulations card, or your kid just, you just had a kid, congrats on the boy, or whatever it is, right? So they can send those messages directly, to agents without us having to monitor it. Just make sure the card is on there for the reload, right, from the market center. Also I use my AI tools to track like performance, and see like, oh well, you just got your first deal in the past 90 days. That's a handwritten note. Team meeting recognition, award ceremonies. We also do a capper dinner. So, when someone caps, we do it quarterly. So we'll have like a Q1 or, Q2, Q3, Q4 capper dinner. It's just all the cappers. We go to a nice restaurant. So we kind of dress up a little bit. They bring their +1. We either do rounds or whatever, so have someone do that part. I'm not Mr. Martha Stewart at all. We have someone else do the seating arrangements or whatever, but it's always really nice, right? We have a nice note for them. We celebrate them, we bring them all together, and we get to meet their families, meet their partner, whoever their significant, whoever's there. And it's always super special, right? So Capper dinner is probably, I hate picking favorites, but that's probably my favorite because it's a small group because it's just your cappers for that quarter. So it's not like, all, 55. It's just, here's just
Yeah.
10. And you also get to meet whoever's most important to them, and make them important that evening too, and celebrate them with a smaller group. So that's a really special event that we do as well.
I like that because not to call it my office, but my office does like a capper lunch every month. And because it's always just like a mass invite all the time, like I'm not like, I'm just kind of like, oh, it's always there. But the fact that you do them quarterly, it's like, oh, it's like the one time I actually get to be recognized when I cap. It's not just like this blast. So it's recognition, but it's also recognition with intention,
Correct.
you
Correct.
know?
It doesn't mean much if it's not followed behind something else. Even just the little things of like just, like someone mentions, that they're going, that they're in the hospital or that they're feeling sick and just send you like a small, succulent or like, it's just like, it's the little things or remembering that, Terry likes sunflowers. So I'm going to send her sunflowers, not a succulent, right? So like the little things and knowing that about your people, it matters, right? Knowing their kids' names and it matters.
But I will say it's very difficult. It's very difficult when you're running a team and you're running a business to remember all that stuff. And I'm saying this from my own unfortunate. I feel like I feel like I feel bad, like I feel bad because I know I could be doing more. And it's so, but and I'm probably, because I am self-aware that I'm probably doing more than most. But I already know that like administrative appreciation day was like 4 days ago. And fortunately, my admin staff did not notice. Uh, but apparently, I need to let them know today to go ahead and set up an AM card account and to get that scheduled for themselves next year so I don't miss it. Because it's just there's so many ways that we can get distracted when we're working in the business, especially as business owners. But there's nothing more important. There's nothing bigger than like your 20% is nothing bigger than your people, right? Like your people are there to propel you into the future. And they're behind your mission and your vision, right? So they really do need to be your 20%. And even today, I was meeting with one of my admin staff, and I was at the very end, I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you. Forgot to say thank you. I forgot to show appreciation until like the very end. I'm so sorry. Or you did a good job, but being aware of that, I think, is really important. I think you're doing a great job. And that's part of how you're able to retain talent, you know?
Yeah, and once again, it's not just me, right? So like the AM cards, that's the ALC, that's the Market Center leadership team, that's anyone when you see anything, just hop in there and get the card. You don't have to ask a question, ask is it approved? If it feels appropriate to add a chocolate bar to it, add the chocolate bar, right? I'm not right, I'm not watch if that budget item gets or that line item gets way out of budget, then I'll watch it, but it's not, right? It's a card. And maybe it's a flower here and there, but the impact goes much deeper and further.
Well, I think what we should add to that is saying to everyone, if you're aware of that being an issue for you, to remind yourself that you can ask for help,
Yeah.
right? Like you don't need to just do it yourself. That's why I already made a hint that Joshua needs to set up an AM card account. Wink, wink. So that next year things work accordingly. It's reminding yourself it's not how, it's who, truly. Now, this type of industry and really a lot of industries can have a higher turnover rate, right? Agents can come in, agents can come out, entrepreneurs start businesses. Sometimes those businesses fail, and it can be pretty challenging to maintain stable dynamics, right? What retention strategies have you found the most effective?
So, I mean, I think it's the same for any like an agent's business. Relationship is your currency, right?
Yeah.
So, if that relationship is broken, then so is your currency to hold on to that person. So you just continue to foster a relationship, and you're not going to foster a good business relationship or personal professional development one if you're not also pouring into that person to help them grow, right? So it kind of goes back to that. They want to grow. If you're feeding them, you're helping them grow and connecting them to greater opportunities, right? It's not going to always be with you, right? It's not going to always be in the market center, right? There's a lot happening in KW, thankfully, right? And that's how we're able to continue to grow. And that's why we have so many top producers with KW, right? So it's not all through your market center. For example, what's happening today, right? Right.
Yeah.
So it's also connecting others with other people and not thinking it all has to be you. And there are also just going to be things that you have to just give yourself some space to not be able to control, right? If someone moves, if someone has, severe loss in their family, and you have to remind yourself that, life still happens and you cannot stop life from happening. All you can do is be there for that person. And at times it's going to be saying like, hey, I understand that you're going through a hard time. Who else in your life are you talking to about this that's a professional in this area, right? So some things we as leaders also want to take on that it's not ours to take on, right? If someone's going through a very, tough divorce, you can be there empathetic, you can listen, and that's what you should do and not go much further than that, right? And you should also connect them with a professional that can help, right? They're coming to you for professional guidance on their business, and you do that, but also if you're that person that connects them to say, hey, here's how you can get help with that, and here's where I recommend you go, here's the resources. Wow, did you just feed that relationship, right? Because they're clearly not seeking that, but they are seeking professional guidance, and that's what you're doing.
So what I'm hearing is give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Take him to the guy who actually knows how to fish to teach him how to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime.
Yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah.
I think that's the thing.
In networking, you don't want to be the person, you don't have to be the who that they're connected to, but if you're that connector, you just became that much more important to both of those individuals. All right, so yeah.
It's valid. Yeah. I mean, I love being that person that people will come to and say, "Hey, who do you know?" Right? And I think that's something that as a business owner you should strive to be. You want to be someone's reliable resource, and number one person you'd want to be a reliable resource for is the people who work for you and with you, right? You want them to come to you with all that type of stuff. We went through, and I know you know this, and this is not private. This has been shared publicly, but one of our team members went through cancer recently and is fortunately cancer free now. And that has been its own hurdles, right? It's been its own struggle. And I think as a team owner or a business owner and kind of balancing that, there's so many wrong ways that you can manage that. So many wrong ways you can manage that because there's emotional roller coasters. There's things to, you still have to run a business. And you know what? Like, every decision or every conversation we had was always around what are we going to be more upset about in 5 years, that we hit the goal we set before this happened or that we took care of each other,
Yeah, yeah,
you know? So,
absolutely.
that's what you should lead with. And just think about what are you, no regrets, no regrets, as some tattoos say. And and focus on your people, focus on what matters, which is your relationships. Now, feedback is important for improvement. I'm sure you're getting yelled at all the time. No. How are you creating a culture where, people feel comfortable giving you feedback? My team and I recently had a couple months ago, we were doing an exercise on this actually, on feedback. So how are you creating an environment where your team members feel comfortable providing you with some type of honest feedback and things?
Yeah, so I know it's not like a broken record, but you have your board, you have your people, right? And for me, that's my ALC. So that's I expect honest feedback from them, and they don't hold back, right? So like, I would share some conversations, but they're not the most culture friendly, right? But it's okay, right? So they give the honest feedback, and it's truthful, and it helps us grow, right? So and I see through my ALC as in I have that group that I know I can trust that's going to give me the honest feedback, but I need them to also go out and get it because no, they're not going to come to me and say, "Hey, Shonn, you're bringing this other training event that no one's going to go to, or we don't want this, we don't want that." So you have to open and just drop the question out there, and also not be like not too proud or too thin skinned where you can't take a hit, right? You got to just kind of put it out there like, "Hey, I can take it. Yep, I'm going to pick on this and pick on that." Not perfect, and don't say that I am, right? So we all are making progress towards our goal, and that's it, right? So I'm not seeking perfection, just seeking progress, right? So for that reason, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And when you do that with that close group of people, they'll go out and get you the honest feedback.
Now, Shonn, I'm a Virgo, so I don't like feedback. But you mentioned something with the having your agent leadership council for your office that I think can translate over to something that Gary Keller has said, the CEO and owner of Keller Williams, or the guy who did it all, which is you have to find like five people, like the five people who you can trust the most. And like once you've got like five people in your circle that you can like depend on for anything, like the rest will take care of itself, right? And so reminding yourself that like all of those five people, whoever they look like, need to have that type of honest feedback loop with you, so that you're all kind of growing together and not in a sense of like, someone's mad at somebody or you're doing something obnoxious and nothing's getting done. I think I'm the nice one on the team. So I'm saying that because none of them are here to defend themselves, but I'm I'm the nice one on my team. So I always welcome feedback, even though I don't listen to it. No, I'm kidding. Now
Every voice matters, right?
every
So
every
you know,
voice. No, they
it's
definitely do.
one agency to, and everyone's a leader, right? So, whether that's the leadership team or the ALC, leadership team, I want to know what does our director of communications think about this? What is I want to know agent services, and it's all valid, right? And I want them all to have an opinion on it. And I want them to learn, right? And to learn, and them to receive feedback of why we might not go this direction versus that, right? So that's why that's how you foster that. Everyone is important.
Well, and it's a balance because if you are the owner, right, like you're the business owner, at the end of the day, the decision is ultimately yours. And, I think sometimes like my team gets surprised when I'm like, well, what do you think? Like, and they're like, what do you mean? What do I think? And I'm like, no, I want to know what you think. Like, I want to have the balance. And then I'm going to tell you you're wrong, but I still want to know what you think. No, just kidding. It's sometimes you just have to remember that you're bringing people, the focus should be that you're bringing people into your world because you want them to uplift you, and keeping that honest feedback loop will allow that to happen. So LC is doing that for you, which is great. Looking ahead for, KW Classic, what are your aspirations for evolving that culture? Like, do you see, is there a thing past black belt? Can you do more?
So I can get triple black belt, and then I can go into Team Leader Hall of Fame. I think you have to do triple.
Is that really a thing? Hall of Fame?
Oh yeah, no, there's a Team Leader Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Of that. Okay. Are we adjusting for that? Are we ready for that? What type of things are we doing?
Oh yeah, we're working on it. We're working on it. Yeah. So but I would say, it's next for KW Classic, next opportunity is really just continue to attract that next generation of leader. I think our community, just I can speak for Orlando, but I think as a whole, everyone would agree, we need a more inclusive community, where everyone feels welcome, accepted, and valued, and attracting leaders, agent leaders, market center leadership that believes in that and wholeheartedly wants to grow that. And I think as we do that, we all will continue to thrive and succeed through any shift, through any opportunity that's ahead of us, or challenge rather. So that's what I see us next, is attracting that next level of generational leaders.
I love that. There is no greater calling that the humanity has than feeling like they belong somewhere.
Yeah,
And so creating a space where people belong is a skill that is not easy, and you have found it, friend. So I appreciate you sharing with everyone today.
absolutely. Safe spaces are important, and that is exactly what we create. And I'm grateful to be in this position to do so. Yeah.
Thanks for listening today, friends. If you enjoyed this call, do not forget to join Queer and Successful, the community on Facebook, as well as register to participate in these calls live every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern at successfulcall.com. See you next time. Bye.